This is Donald from Talking About Podcast. We are here with a man of many talents, someone who's been involved with more projects than I can count easily, Mr. Taliesin Jaffe.
Hello.
How are you doing today?
Very, very well. Thank you.
All right. So you started out as very much rooted in traditional Hollywood. As Michelle was saying, you have Michelle, you have ancestors that have worked in...
From the silent era.
From the silent era.
Oh, yeah. I was supposed to say it goes back far enough. Ancestors would be the right word at that point. Yeah, that's so kind.
So how did you wind up involved in the anime industry?
Well, I was I worked among other things. I worked as a child actor for many years, and at that time, one of my few friends my own age was Nick was a really big anime fan, and of course this was 1990, 1989. This was not normal at the time. It was a much smaller community.
This was back when people would just get RAWs and try to figure them out.
This was VHS RAWs taped directly off Japanese television.
8th generation copies.
CFO meetings and meetings at UCLA and anime. I was at actually AnimeCon 91. Way back when.
Yes, you definitely have bragging rights as far as I was into it before anyone else.
I can definitely say before it was cool because it was pretty nerdy back then. It was a really good time though, and I loved it. It was such a different type of storytelling. It really grabbed me. I remember I want to say it was either Dagger of Kamui or Blade of Kamui. I can never remember.
Dagger of Kamui. That is a fun. That is so ridiculous. It's such a ridiculously fun series.
I loved it. Well, it almost changed my life because I remember watching it, and we were watching it at the UCLA Anime Club, and we got to the end of it, and that ending. I don't want to spoil it, but it's so harsh. It's so angry and awful, and everybody sacrifices for nothing, and life is unfair, and there is no justice in the world. I'm like, this was the most amazing thing I'd ever seen. It was just so cruel. Like, yes, this is what life is. It's awful. I love it. At the time, the dubs were very mixed at best. And
yes, the early days of dubs.
Yeah, there were really only a few dubs that had real bragging rights at the time, and coming from the industry, I was kind of curious as to why that was, and just coming from a production background and from a film background, and I was sort of staring at the medium going, this could be really, really big. This could be a big deal. I can't figure out why it's not working. So I sort of sat down with some friends for several years in high school and started working out, trying to work the kinks out of the system in the like AV department, and eventually created a fan dub that I made with some friends. That really, I believe in the
fandoms before fandubs were cool.
It was analog. We didn't even have digital editing. We did the whole thing tape to tape. It was really hard. The lip flap is a mess. And due to various reasons, I've only ever shown it twice. Has it actually been shown anywhere? But this fan dub, I had friends who worked on the Max, MTV's The Max at the time, so I got them to come in and do voices. I had Roddy McDowell do a voice for the. I got so many people to come in on this thing.
The Max was a wonderful series.
Yeah, the Max. I still use sides from the Max for auditions when their scripts aren't ready, and I use it also for teaching. Still, it's so good.
Yeah, it was beautifully done, and it was one of the first times that 2D and 3D were melded.
Not much has been that successful in my opinion either. It really, nothing looks like it. It really, they're trying to with the motion comics these days, but they're not hitting it.
Yeah, it was very dreamlike. It's like you had this thing where Mr. Gaughan's cape would just drape down.
And that voice, you could listen to that voice.
Oh, he was awesome.
You killed my hostage. Never do that again.
And it's like nobody knows who that man was.
I have a list of all the actors. A lot of interesting, very interesting, strange actors they pulled in on that. And really the writing, the performances and the writing on that show so remarkable. There's a great scene I use all the time. It's the character Sarah is in the art room and she finds the bag of clay, and it is, and the creepy the magic piece of talking clay.
Oh,
it's
yes.
just so phenomenal.
Yes.
I think we should be quiet for a minute and let you do the awesome voice.
I'm trying. Well, it's funny because the clay is the character Mr. Gone. It's his head in the bag, and it just does that. He's trying to be all nice and friendly through the whole. It's the hi Sarah, I'm a magic piece of talking clay, and I just think that it's important for every writer to know just how rotten she can be, and it just goes into the Mr. Gone voice. I know he's so good. He's so, and I mean, every actor and the writing and the music on that show, they just hit every note.
Oh yeah,
so beautifully.
It's so glad. I'm
I can
so
nerd on that all day.
It's available on DVD again.
Some music has been changed, but other than that, it's
well, they had to.
Yeah, they lost a couple.
What happened with Daria? I mean, that got absolutely massacred as far as the music goes, because the music with Daria was kind of like a Greek chorus to everything.
It really set it in its time too, and I have a lot of respect for that. We went through a similar thing with Beck when we were working on Beck, where there was a song that we really wanted to use for the show that.
Oh yeah, Mongolian Chop Squad.
Mongolian Chop Squad. There was a Beatles song in Beck that the legal department were like, can we do it? Can we do it? And the legal department said no. And I'm like, you're being bastards. And then they showed me the paperwork. I'm like, oh my God, we really can't do it. Oh, wow, that's expensive.
It is a shame.
Can you say what the song was?
Yeah, it was I've Got a Feeling by the Beatles. Which they're supposed to play. Koyuki is supposed it goes on for like 3 bloody episodes. He's supposed to be up there on the stage with an acoustic guitar playing the Beatles' I've Got a Feeling, with everybody in the audience going, oh my God, he's playing the Beatles song. That's awesome. And they're like, you can't use the Beatles song. And we just sort of stared in shock going, oh God.
But gotta give propers to Glenn Eichler, because he was one of the reasons why both the Max and Daria was so good.
Oh God, that's right. That was the time of the whole Liquid Television run, and there was so much great experimental stuff going on back then.
Yeah, it's like let me get on my soapbox here. Viacom does not know what gold they have in their vaults.
I spent a couple of years trying to find out who owned the rights to the old FHE. I don't know if you Ziv Video releases. I don't know if you know Ziv Video, which was one of the big anime. They actually did some very good anime dubs back in the 1980s. And there was another company, Columbia Pictures, used to own the Sanrio films.
Yeah.
Which, I don't know when the last time you watched these Sanrio films. They're amazing. They still hold up. They're brilliant.
Like Metamorphosis and stuff?
Metamorphosis, Sea Prince and the Fire Child, Unico and the Island of Magic, Unico's Fantastic Adventures. Yeah. I mean, like, you say that, but then, like, if you've actually seen these movies, like, they're epic. They're Lord of the Rings epic. Oh, God.
Awesome.
And dubbed really well.
Yeah, but, it's like, I hear that they're talking about starting up Liquid Television again.
I wonder if the world can support. We don't really need Liquid Television anymore. We have the internet.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
I get to see tons of fabulous experimental animation.
Yeah, and people are doing it, just doing it.
It's cheap enough to do.
It's so available and so ubiquitous, and it's powerful enough now to do anything you want.
I know animators all over the world right now I've seen stuff. I wonder if I brought any of it. I can bring it tomorrow. I've seen stuff out of countries you would not believe are producing amazing animation.
Yeah. I mean, one of the hot spots. One of these days we're going to do an episode called "Global Anime for Global Animation for Anime Fans."
Remind me when you do that I should kick you down some amazing Cuban animators.
Yeah, and there's France has
done very, very well. Mm-hmm. Europe in general. Germany's got some interesting stuff. France, Ireland, weirdly enough, has got some amazing stuff. Yeah, and I mean, Israel. It's like a few years ago. One of the best recent. Did you get a chance to see Waltz with Bashir? Yes. Who showed that? God, I'm trying to remember who showed that to me.
It's so good, and it was basically done as an animated documentary, because this was a real story. The guy who directed this, it was his story of finding out what really happened in Lebanon.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I'll look that up.
It was all about reality.
It's fascinating what people are doing right. It's a great time to be into at least world animation right now, because there's so many places where this technology has just not been available. And thanks to the internet now, we can all see it so quickly and so much.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, even like weird commercial productions, like what was that, G.I. Joe Resolute, which is, I mean, like you say that, you're like, oh, it's a G.I. Joe cartoon, but it's not. You watch it, it's so out there.
Absolutely.
And they made it on a shoestring budget, and like they got a bunch of amazing comic book artists and animators together to just throw this thing together.
Mm.
So Don, you had some more questions.
Yes. Now, you started out as a voice actor, but you've lately moved into some more staff roles, directing, scriptwriting. What motivated you for this?
Well, I've always been doing a little bit of directing and script adapting. I honestly, the voice acting is really, really fun, and I really enjoy it. And it's a cheap high. It's such a cheap high. But because you're right in there and you're getting to play with the characters and you're getting to do all this really great fun stuff. But the directing and the script adapting, if you really want to play around with the medium, you kind of have to get in that direction, and you have to. The best actors in the world can't save a crappy script. The script adaptation is one of those things. I haven't been able to touch much script adapted. I haven't been able to touch much script adaptation lately, just because it's such a grueling, time-consuming process. Romeo x Juliet was the last thing we really got to play with, but
yeah, I mean, you know, I think back as far as that goes, and I mean, it's like the dub script that was created for Cowboy Bebop.
Oh yeah.
Gotta be the best.
Mm-hmm.
It's a shining example of what should and can be done, and especially for the time, it was.
For the time, it was revolutionary.
I know. I was dancing around revolutionary because it was one of those things where everybody who knew the art of it and knew the art of script adaptation walked in going, of course, that's exactly how you do it. I mean, we were all sort of, and the question I remember when I met Mary Elizabeth is, how did you convince them to let you do this? Like, this is what everybody had been pushing for, was this kind of adaptation, and this has been what everybody had been fighting for. How did you convince them to just let you do this? And I'm trying to remember exactly what her answer was, along the lines of, they didn't know. So it's like, rock on, kick its ass. So
I mean, they did a film noir. They did film noir dialogue, and it
needed it. It was, I mean, that's the thing. It was a Cowboy Bebop on a certain level. It's so Western that I'm amazed it was produced in Japanese. Sometimes, I mean, like. That show wants to be in English. It begs to be in English.
Yeah. Although you gotta also give propers to the Japanese seiyuu that work on it. It was tremendous.
Fantastic work as well. But like I mean, just from an industry perspective, though, it's nice and very rare, especially for the few of us who just have massive egos, to walk in and like watch an anime and going, yeah, I couldn't have done any better. Normally, like, well, I would have, and I was like, no, it's pretty much, that's where it sits. I got nothing to add to that.
What's the most fun project that you've worked on?
Whoa, well, for anime, it would either be, oh god, for anime it would either be ROD the TV.
Oh, that was awesome.
Just because it was the first time in my life where they more or less said yes to everything that I asked for, which never happens and has not happened since. And then Beck would be a tie, if not a close second, just because the production of it was so rock and roll that it was kind of it was such an adventure just making it, that moving to a new state and like living on someone's couch for a year and just and like as part of work going out and going to a lot of live music all the time, and it was a very. There were a lot of road trips. There was a lot of driving involved in making it.
I love that series because it's like my late husband was a musician, and it's so real.
It's very, and we were very careful to keep it that way. We really wanted to make everybody involved was into their music, or a lot of like Jerry Jewell, who played the bassist for Mongolian Chop Squad, is actually a bassist, a very talented bassist. And we were, God, I must have put like 6,000 miles on my car working on that show.
Wow.
I drove to Texas from California.
Wow. That's a long drive.
And then in Texas, we went to North Texas to pick one. We wanted to use Johnny Young Bosch. So Johnny was like not in town, but he was in the States. We drove up to pick him up in North Texas, drove him down to Dallas, and then we drove him to Austin, where I sent him back home, and then drove to Colorado where I got stuck. And then once I was home, I drove up to Seattle, Washington for one last voiceover actor that we wanted to use, and like rented a little recording studio in Seattle to like finish up. It was an amazing.
I'm trying to take him to Leo Laporte and Petaluma, and I'm really trying to figure out a long trip. You've just blown me away.
No, it was driving to Texas from LA was definitely driving to and from. It was it's fine if you don't mind taking your time. So
I'm hearing you say you spend a lot of time working.
Yes.
Yeah. You pour yourself into it.
A lot of time working, and I just need to figure out a way of getting paid for more of that work. Is the life.
Is your work kind of your hobby also?
Hobbies? I don't understand hobbies.
Right. Because you love what you're doing.
I do, and it's interesting because these days also it's a lot of video games, which is kind of interesting, and it's weird because I'm not. Oh, how to explain it? I've never had to explain this before. I was a very big anime fan when I was young, and I'm still an anime fan, but I'm not an anime. Like a lot of the new stuff just doesn't quite grab me as much. I'm happy if I find one show a year that I'm like excited to watch. Right now it's Princess Jellyfish, fantastic.
Oh, cool.
So good. And I'm not a big. I play a little bit of video games, but really you can't do this for a living and play a lot of video games just because.
You have to have sleep
and time.
Video games are quite the time sink.
They're a terrible time sink, and so I'm just now like I think I put in 3 hours of Portal 2 like a couple days ago. I finally got around to it, and I maybe can get like 2 hours of World of Warcraft in every month. I'm not.
So is that part of your social life, World of Warcraft?
No, I just don't have the time for it. So
you have a real social life.
Yeah, well, I have nothing wrong with the World of Warcraft social life.
Sorry, I'm the only one who asked about real life.
No, but it's interesting. It's that I instead of being a fan necessarily of video games and a fan of anime, I've discovered I'm a fan of process. And so it's not necessarily even about the shows anymore, the games, but it's about, oh God, there's all these problems to make it really good. How do we, like, if they show me a game that they hand me a game, I'm like, this is easy, anybody could do this. I've turned down stuff before just because I'm like, I'm afraid I'm going to get bored. So like, yeah, it's like Romeo X Juliet. They're like, they handed the script adaptation. Like, do you want to do this? I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to kill myself. This looks great. I'm not going to sleep more than 3 hours a night for the next 3 months. Oh.
Because it challenges and excites you?
Yeah, because I'm like staring at it going like, oh, we could do this, but that's just going to drive everybody crazy and it's going to be so much work and I'm never going to see the light of day. Oh yeah, we're doing it. And it's just, you just get to that point.
Your gifts.
Yeah, and it's better to be challenged.
And the skills that you've built up.
Yeah, and it really and it's weird in my real life. A lot of my friends don't even know what I do for a living. They've got a vague idea that I must do something because I haven't starved to death yet. But real life is real life.
I'd like to get more of a dimension that more than one dimensional. I'm trying to think which way is one.
Yes,
yeah.
It's hard not to have a good time in this town. So.
It's good to say that. A lot of people say I hate LA, and
I was like that when I was a teenager, and then I got out and was like, no, this place is actually pretty nice. I think I'll move back.
I know I'm bringing this back to this whole old Hollywood.
Oh no, please.
You're Sam Jaffe's nephew or something?
I think that's true. If it's the Sam Jaffe I'm thinking of, then I know we are related. I couldn't quite remember how. I can kind of do the web if you want, but it's weird because everybody in the family does something, so it's kind of.
Yeah.
I have Ancestry.com right here.
I can on the Jaffe side. There's Robert Jaffe and Herb Jaffe, who on that side. Herb Jaffe was a producer and DJ. Was he in the DGI? I think also. My dad, Robert Jaffe, was a sci-fi writer.
Right.
On the other end of it is the Axelrod family, and that's my mother was an actress and a casting director. My uncle was I think he was the head of a network. I'd have to check that, but he's a producer, a television producer. My uncle on the other side of the family again was a film producer. My grandfather was a screenwriter and a playwright. And my great grandmother was a silent film actress. I mean, it's sort of
your great grandmother. Which silent film actress?
I don't know if Betty Carpenter. I don't know if anything exists anymore. I would have to dig around.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's like only 10% of all the movies from that era are still extant.
Isn't that hateful? I know. There's so many problems in the world, and I'm aware of them, but it would take so little money to make sure that we just stopped losing movies. It's one of those things.
Yes, it's very important, and it's a cause that I think needs a little more attention.
Absolutely.
Only because it's so easily fixable. It's not like this is not a money pit. It's one of those things that we could just fix, which would be really nice.
We're not thinking very much about future generations anymore. What an important.
It really there are films. Sometimes I need to reference things, and I'll go to find something that I need to like pull out for. There's a lot of research and reference that goes into doing this job, and it's disheartening on occasion when you've just discovered that the thing that you're looking for just doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah.
Which does happen.
You mentioned too that you only roughly enjoy roughly one new show a year, so there must be some classics that are in.
Orange Road, Gekeke no Kitaro, Candy Candy, Violence of Hamlin, Saint Seiya. I was a very big fan of Saint Seiya growing up. I already said Orange Road was a really big one for me too. Urusei Yatsura was a very, very big show for me.
Yeah.
I watched a lot of City Hunter growing up. I watched, God, there's just so much. I was really into the shoujo stuff too. Like I still have tapes of like Hana no Lun Lun and Rose of Versailles and stuff like that.
Oh wow, yeah.
I loved the high drama stuff.
You get about one more question. I'm sorry about that.
Okay, we got
that was the bell ring.
Yeah, sorry.
Out of all the projects you're involved in, is there a particular story or a character that kind of affected you or maybe resonated particularly with you?
Ooh. At the time, I will say that I was... there's a show called Nia Under 7.
I love that.
Which I love. It is my little special baby. And at the time, I was coming out of a really, really bad... I was coming out of a bad moment. I'd been poorer than I'd ever been poor in my life. I had been living really, really... I'd not been taking care of myself. I was not quite at the lowest point I'd ever been at, but as close as I ever plan on getting again. And that show just sort of came out of nowhere. It was a great gig, and it was a gig I really needed the money. And it was an opportunity to kind of play. And the themes were so much about what I had just come out of, and I felt that I connected to it so much just for that poor Mayuko's despair and her situation.
Yeah.
And I got to work with nothing but these actors and actresses that had not done a lot of anime, but were all people I knew very well personally. These actors that I'd been sort of grooming to come in and do a show as soon as one came up, and it all sort of came out beautifully as kind of a, whether or not anybody else got anything out of it, for me it was very much it was a chance to talk about everything that had just happened to me in my life.
Just remember to stay away from the cosmic gas.
Oh, cosmic gas is that well.
And with that, let's wrap it up.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you so much.